Our next session is about the power of partnership, an overview of the Marine Stewardship Council's global program and India's emerging role in the sustainable seafood market. Before I call all the dignitaries on the dais, I would request everybody again to kindly put your phone on silent. In case of any emergency, you can step out of the discussion hall and attend your calls. Also, during the question answer round, I would request you to kindly raise your hand, identify yourself and the speaker you want to get your answer from, and then please continue with your question. I would now again request Dr. K.N. Raghavan to please have his opening remark for this discussion round. I would request Shri A.G. Tarakan, National Managing Committee Member, SEAI, to please join us on the dais. I would request Dr. Sunil Mohammed, Chair of the Sustainable Seafood Network of India, SSNI, to please join us on the dais. I would request you all to please give them a huge round of applause and a warm welcome. I would request Shri Michael Marriott, MSc Program Director, Africa, the Middle East and South Asia, to please join us on the dais. I would request Dr. Ranjit Suselan, Head of MSc India, to please join us on the dais. I would request Dr. Grimson George, Director, CMFAI, to please join us on the dais. I would request Shri Vinod Malai, Associate Director, Marine Conservation Program, WWF India, to please join us on the dais. We present a very warm welcome to all of you. I would request you all to please have a huge round of applause for all our esteemed speakers. I would now request Dr. K.N. Raghavan to please present his opening remark.
Various other organisms on the planet, on the ecosystem, on the environment. So it is extremely essential that we follow practices that are sustainable and will take us forward in the years and decades to come. Further, most of the importing countries are also insisting on certificates for sustainability and sustainable practices. And it is very important and relevant that we need to know into what these practices are and how the certifying agencies, you can work with the certifying agencies and get the required certifications done so that you not only follow the practices but ensure that these are properly recorded and certified. We have an eminent panel with us, and I would request Mr. Abraham Tarakan to set the ball rolling with his keynote address. Sir.
Very good afternoon to all of you. It's my privilege today to give this keynote address on this technical session regarding external certification for the seafood sector with focus on the Marine Steward Council. We have very knowledgeable speakers here regarding MSc certification. Dr. Sunil Mohammed, who's going to moderate this session. I think there's nobody ex-CMFRI who knows more about the oceans than he is. He sort of acts like a guru. At times we violently disagree with him, but from a seafood sector point of view, but yet he's there. So coming to today, seafood is not just a matter of taste and trade. It's deeply concerned to issues like sustainability, traceability, consumer trust, and market access. Increasingly, international buyers, retailers, and even governments are demanding evidence that the seafood that they source is harvested and processed responsibly. External certifications such as the MSc, ASC, and others are therefore emerged as benchmarks for credibility. But with these opportunities come important questions that we need to ask regarding this certification, which I hope will be covered in the presentations that are being made. Firstly is that are these such certifications essential for global market access? Or can local and national standards play a sufficient role? Do they truly ensure sustainable fishing and aquaculture practices, or do they impose barriers for small producers and developing economies? How can we balance the costs of certification with the benefits of branding, trust, and competitiveness? Our goal today is not only to understand the technical requirements of certification like what the MSc offers us, but also to critically examine their necessity, the impact, and the practical implications for stakeholders across the seafood value chain, from harvesters, processors, to exporters and retailers. So today, if you look, India, we have, I think, what we call fishery in progress, FIP, with the MSc for almost 10 fisheries. The most we have, the most I think the advanced towards full certification is the one that with regard to cephalopods, the deep sea fish, deep sea shrimp, and two specific varieties of ocean cod, namely Pualin and Karikari. We have been 4 years in this progress, and hopefully within the next year we hope to get certification. So we have worked very hard with this, but we need a lot of government cooperation, because government laws with regard to fishing are also a very critical sense for getting full certification. So we are quite hopeful that this kind of external certification will help us. Just to give you a very good example is that we have an American very well-known it's a oceanarium requirement called Monterey Bay Oceanarium. So they have their kind of certification where they've have put various fisheries under green, yellow, and red. And few of our companies were supplying squid to one of the most prominent food service chains in the United States. And based on some a report actually from a scientist from CMFRI, they distorted that report totally. And as a result of which, India was put on the red list. And with great effort, we have been trying to get this. In fact, CMFRI has clarified that their report it's a distortion of the report. But we have been battling with Monterey Bay on this issue. They did put us on yellow, then they brought us back to red. And of course, still this issue is going. And of course, Dr. Sunil is trying to help us because he has a direct link with Monterey Bay. But this is what the importance that these certification agencies do. They can, by their ratings, they can literally prohibit or restrict us selling to certain customers, because today a lot of the big chains, retailers as well as food service, restaurant chains are all dependent on this external certification. So it has become very essential that we get certifications from these recognized agencies. One of the questions that are asked is, why can't nationally we set up a standard, right? Like what can CMRI can do it, CIFT can do it. We have so many fishery research institutes. Why can't they do a national certification? But the issue is that will these, say, companies, Walmart or Cisco, Costco, will they recognize these national agencies? In fact, Japan tried to do it and failed. So this question keeps coming up with national governments at various stages. So, end of the day, some of the, like the MSc, have great credibility. They have a very due process by which they give full certification. So that is why a lot of us, actually a whole lot, few companies have got together and funded this whole operation for certification. So with that, I will now leave it to Dr. Sunil Mamal to monitor this session. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Sunil Mohammed, and I am the chair of the Sustainable Seafood Network of India. This network aims to try to coordinate between different players to achieve certification for some of our Indian fisheries. So the theme of this particular session is the power of partnership. And this is where it's so important, because fisheries is a very much a multidisciplinary subject involving many disciplines and people. For example, we have the fishermen, the primary producers, we have many agents, we have researchers, we have the government regulating it, we have finally the trade business exporting it. So coordinating all these things to get to a certification is very important, and that's where the power of partnership becomes very important. And particularly in certification, a global leader is the Marine Stewardship Council. Just a moment. One of our panelists who was missing here was Dr. Mohammad Koya, the Fishery Development Commissioner, who is held up in a meeting. But I think in his place, Dr. Nilesh Pawar has come. Can you please get a chair for him to sit? Or it's all right, he can sit. Yeah. He represents the Government of India Fisheries, Department of Fisheries. So I'll quickly get into some of the speakers at this point of time. The first speaker is Mr. Michael Marriott, who is the MSc Project Director for Africa, Middle East, and South Asia. I would like him to give a brief presentation on the status of certification in these areas, especially Asia. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sunil, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. It's been a great pleasure to be here in India. My second visit, my first visit to Delhi, and I have to say you have the most welcoming and friendly country, so it really has been fantastic to be here for the past couple of days. My name's Michael Marriott. I'm the Program Director for the MSc's outreach work in Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. We do have local representation, so a lot of the direct stakeholder engagement that you will do as stakeholders will be through my team. And I'll go a little bit through how we're structured, but really what I want to focus on today is just understanding what the MSc's purpose is, why we came into being, and also so you can see a little bit of the growth that we've had globally, and then I'll hand over to a colleague to reflect a bit more on how what we're currently doing in India specifically. So we're at a seafood expo. I don't need to really talk to anyone in this room about the importance of fisheries or seafood as a global industry. It's an absolutely massive industry worldwide. And it's not really my role to promote seafood or to promote fishing in any way. What I do is I promote sustainability within the sector. So recognizing that there are challenges in fisheries and trying to promote to the various stakeholders the role they can play in helping to drive environmental sustainability. So it doesn't really matter where in the sector you sit, whether or not you're looking at it from a livelihoods perspective or a food security, dietary health perspective, or whether you're coming at it from the environmental side. The reality is that fisheries face a number of challenges. The one that we're primarily focused on is the element of overfishing, recognizing that there are other challenges within the sector as well, but the MSC's role is to try and put an end to overfishing using certification and eco-labeling. Now, of course, fisheries are managed by fishing management authorities, and the jurisdiction doesn't lie with independent or global organizations like the MSC. It sits with management authorities. And unfortunately, what we've seen is that good fisheries management requires very good inputs. So information, expertise, capacity to manage fisheries. And what that translates into is that the bigger economic fisheries tend to attract the best management. So we don't get equal fishery management across all sectors, all species, all fisheries in all countries. So that's the reality. And when you're talking about a very broadly traded commodity like seafood, which can go from through a number of countries, a number of processes from initial harvest till when it ends up on the plate of the final consumer, it's very important to that consumer or to the buyer that they also have a mechanism in place for being able to recognize fish that comes from well-managed fisheries. So it's not to take away the management responsibility from individual management authorities, but rather to provide a recognition framework for the supply chain. In the past 60 years or so, we've seen a 5-fold increase in consumption. Seafood is quite unique, I think, in terms of food products, and probably in terms of many commodities, in that although we've got around 50%, a little bit over 50% now that's produced in aquaculture, a large part of that supply still comes from the wild, from populations that are impacted by changing environments that are outside of our control. So good fisheries management is incredibly important. We're forecasting that in the next 4 years, that's going to see an additional increase of 15%. And you'll see from a few slides' time why that is significant. I just want to dig a little bit deeper into the livelihoods element, though. I think it was in the previous session someone mentioned 31 million fishers or people employed by the fishing sector in India. We've got an estimate of around 60 million employed in aquaculture and fisheries in the formal sector directly worldwide. And then when we start going downstream to the other industries linked to those fisheries, around 600 million. That picture changes even more when we start to factor in the small scale and artisanal element, where people are fishing directly for their own consumption or for their communities. I think I don't have my speaker slides, but I think it was around 113 million are considered worldwide to be fishing directly for livelihoods. And so balancing that is a tricky prospect for any management authority that is trying to implement sustainability, but at the same time they're also trying to factor in the people in their country, their direct food security needs, their needs as direct consumers, or whether or not it's more beneficial to the wider population to draw on external markets and added value, for instance. So balancing scientific advice in fisheries management with the immediate direct needs of the population is a challenging prospect. And what we've seen over the course of the years is an increase in the number of stocks worldwide that have been and continue to be overfished. I know we tend to look internally and say we're not part of the problem. The reality is that most of that overfishing has come from stocks that have previously been underfished, and we're getting to the point now where there are very few global stocks that are not already overfished or fished at their maximum or their ideal levels. What is a positive here is that we've also seen a small increase in the number of fisheries that have been well managed, and that over time we're seeing that those managed fisheries are managing to maintain their stock population, their population health, and in some cases actually improving fisheries health. I see there are photos being taken. We can share these slides as well later. So where we stand at the moment, around 2/3 of fisheries are either underfished, as the previous slide showed, a very small number of those, or fished sustainably, but 37%, 38% overfished and still increasing. However, I'm not sure if you can read the bottom number, but around 77% of production in terms of volume is coming from well-managed fisheries. So in terms of global product, we're still in a relatively positive position, and there's cause for some positivity. What we also know from a number of scientific papers is that where fisheries are well managed, the stock health is maintained, productivity increases, and over time, we would see if all fisheries, this is an ideal situation, if all fisheries were managed in what is currently considered to be best practice fishery management, we would potentially be meeting the protein needs of an additional 72 million people. And looking at forecasted population growth, that's something that we should all be taking into consideration, that we can actually be harvesting more in the long term by focusing on sustainable management. Now, all of what I've been saying up until now is not really MSC specific. This is very much about what good fisheries management is trying to achieve anyway, what stock assessment scientists will be doing when they look at the health of stocks and they set recommendations for quotas for allowable catches and that sort of thing. So I want to just come on to what we consider to be sustainability, and there are different viewpoints on what sustainability includes, and I'm going to recognize here that there's environmental sustainability, so the ability of a wild stock to replenish and to be fished in a similar way into the future. There is also economic sustainability when we're looking at fisheries as economic entities. There's social sustainability. So there are various elements to what we might refer to when I mention the word sustainability. From the MSC's perspective, our focus is on overfishing, ending overfishing, and using certification and eco-labeling as a mechanism to do that. So while we recognize the importance of those other elements, our specific expertise and focus is on the environmental part and the fishing activity that takes place. We're a global non-profit. We were set up in the late 1990s, so we're a little over 25 years old now. And we came into being largely as a result of failures in fisheries management in some parts of the world. And what was starting to happen is that some significant stocks that had very big markets collapsed over a very short period of time. That then led to a conversation that was happening at both the conservation NGO level and an industry level, recognizing that while we might be coming from opposite ends of the spectrum, we're all essentially trying to achieve the same thing in the end. And whether it's a conservation ideal or a business ideal, we want that fish to be there in the future. And the MSC was born out of that conversation as an independent organization that would set independent standards that reflected best practice fishery management. So again, not defining what fisheries management should look like, but setting a standard in place that gives a way for independent assessors to review the outcomes of fishery management practices and determine whether or not they are considered to be sustainable. We have a broad vision to see the world's oceans teeming with life, so very much about ending overfishing, and we have a mission that uses eco-labels and certification. I actually would like to ask this room just to think more broadly outside of certification, because I know that's the topic we're primarily discussing. But certification is really a mechanism for providing market forces to recognize whether fish comes from a sustainable source or not. It isn't an outcome in itself. The good fisheries management is the outcome, and really what we're trying to do is to get as many fisheries as possible fishing in line with our standards. So fishing in line with sustainability principles. Whether or not as individual fisheries, they choose to go forward with certification is really a market, a business decision on, and it's normally based on market forces, demand in the markets, and we'll get onto a bit of that conversation in a little bit. But I do want to frame it just because a lot of our work goes unseen in terms of promoting the MSC as a framework for change. It's not simply a certification standard or an eco-label. What we do know is from assessing how certified fisheries or the stocks that certified fisheries are operating on, we can see a distinct difference in how those are performing at a sustainability level. And again, this is just a recognition. So fisheries that are MSC certified are fishing stocks that are considered to be performing environmentally at a higher level than fisheries that are not MSC certified. And that comes back to the good management and the fact that fisheries that are operating within good management structures are seeing the value come back to them. They're seeing the value in being certified and promoting their practices to the wider global audience. Why get certified? Now, this is a very good question. I think comes to the crux of some of the conversation that we're going to have today. The third-party certification standards exist because of unequal management across global fisheries. We don't have a simple, the seafood industry is very complex. Fish gets caught, it gets sold, it gets processed somewhere, it gets sold to a secondary processor in a different country, and it can be in the supply chain. In the case of canned goods, for instance, can be in the supply chain for a number of years. So for a buyer to understand whether or not fish comes from a responsible, well-managed fishery that is operating in a country that has very strict management regime is very difficult. They want a third-party independent standard that doesn't have a vested interest in that specific fishery or in specific trade arrangements with countries. And that's why these third-party standards have come into being. MSC is not alone in that. There are a number of standards that represent different things, seafood sustainability just being one of them. And we've become the largest over the last 25 years and probably the most widely recognized, largely down to what the standard represents, because we put a lot of emphasis on it representing best practice, the scientific rigor that goes into that. And when we come back to questions on whether or not you should be looking at developing country-level standards, for instance, it's not for us to stand in the way of that, but we would encourage you to recognize the amount of work that goes into setting a standard that tries to define an outcome against management that is very different across the world. So it's a very challenging endeavor. We refresh the standards, we review it every 5 years to make sure it continues to represent best practice. So these are the sort of things that need to be factored in. And then there's the marketing element, actually growing the recognition in the global markets. And that's something that is our role as the MSC. These are just a few suggestions for things that, depending on where you are in the supply chain, you might see as value adds for your fishery if you choose to become certified. But again, I do want to stress that certification is the goal for some fisheries. I would still encourage fisheries that are not wanting to be certified to still move along the framework to get to that sustainable fishing position. But if you are certified, in a lot of cases, you may access new markets. You may secure your position in a market. If you're a first mover in some commodity sectors, often there's a price premium to be had depending on what the market demand looks like. Promotional opportunities, there are also partnership opportunities with the MSC as an organization. We have a global footprint, so we have quite a strong marketing arm, marketing potential, and we do run campaigns with partners, with fishery and supply chain partners. So there are various reasons that you might choose to move ahead with certification. Our theory of change is built very much on providing an enabling environment so that any role player, whether you're a retail buyer, whether you're a fisher, whether you're a government official, or even a consumer, you can put pressure down the supply chain onto fisheries so that ultimately behavior starts to change on the water, because that's what it all boils down to. This is available on our website, our Theory of Change, and it doesn't really matter where you started, it's a self-fulfilling loop. The more fisheries that become certified, the more recognizable the label becomes, the more demand in markets grows, the more markets start to look for this independent certification, and the more fisheries are pulled into the program. And as that happens, the downstream effects on those partners who are involved in fishery improvement projects or running fishery improvement projects, consultants, conservation bodies, all of them become important stakeholders in that. So a big part of our role is really convening and bringing together the different role players to work towards a common goal. We have offices around the world, or a presence around the world. You will see that we are still very much concentrated in the European markets. This is partly because of the legacy of where our headquarters are based in the UK, and partly also because a lot of the sustainability agenda is being driven by some of the bigger European seafood markets. So our growth kind of follows where the sustainability demand comes from, and we are starting to see some of that emerge in the Asian subcontinent, in the Middle East, to a lesser extent in Africa, but down in South Africa, where I'm from, we do have quite a strong sustainability consciousness. It hasn't necessarily translated into buyer behavior, but we hope to get there in the coming years. This map just shows where the fisheries that are involved in the MSC are located, with the darker shades of blue being where there's a higher concentration of fisheries involved. And again, you will see that tends to be around the developed nations, coming back to the fishery management principles and the resources and capacity that can be directed toward managing different species that are under their authority. In terms of the MSC's growth, we've experienced actually really rapid growth over the years. At the moment, we have around 20% of global wild capture fisheries that are engaged in our program. By engaged, I include certified and also fisheries that are working towards being certified. They're in assessment or in our MSC improvement program. Our goal is to try and grow that by 2030. We've got a very ambitious goal to try and get 30% of global fisheries into our program by 2030. So we do prioritize the bigger producing countries. India, of course, I think the third biggest producer of seafood. We also target the large volume fisheries. So where we feel that there's a fishery that would benefit from coming into the program from a market perspective, we will work on the market side and on the fishery side to try and make that connection and to grow our footprint so that the recognition and the value add for the certified fisheries increases. So 716 fisheries currently engaged. Just if you can't see the figure before that, that was in the year 22 to 23 was 674, and that increased to 716. I don't have the latest report out, but our new annual report will be coming out in the coming while. What is, from a volume perspective, 15.5 million tons of seafood is currently in the MSC program. So it's a significant volume that the markets have brought in. I'm going to get to a slide in a little bit that shows how much of that ends up being eco-labeled, because interestingly, not all certified fish ends up being sold to the final consumer as certified, and that comes down to market conditions again. In terms of products, we have what I think that's just under 21,000 products. That's individually labeled, whether that's a can or a package of frozen fish. These are items that would be sold to a consumer with the MSC Eco label on it. Around 21,000 in 66 countries. That's 66 reporting countries. It's probably a bit more than that, given that a number of processors or packers will pack for brands that sell into a number of different countries. So we measure 66 countries that MSC is currently present in. If you reflect back to the previous slide, we don't have a physical presence in all of those countries, so our capacity to be able to really grow the marketing and the awareness in those countries is limited, and that's where we rely a lot on our stakeholder network as well. Not equally distributed, of course, and you'll see on the far left, I think that's the Benelux, the Netherlands market, very, very strong on certification. It's become almost a condition of selling into that market to be certified or to have MSC or third-party certification on your product. There's no legal requirement, but what ends up happening is that buyers they come under pressure from retailers who have commitments to make sure that seafood is sourced only from sustainable sources, and the easiest way for them to do that is to identify where there's third-party assessment, third-party verification, and so they make these commitments, which then makes it difficult if you don't have that certification to sell into certain markets. So the strongest markets, as you can see, are mainly focused in Europe, with interestingly a growing market in China as well, which obviously, if it takes off, could be massive for eco-labeled products. What we've also seen because in the recent years, seafood has become more expensive. For most consumers, seafood has become an increasingly high-value product to buy. What we have seen, though, is that the MSC products haven't seen a dip. So while we've maybe seen a leveling off in the number of products, the value coming in has continued to increase. And so we're seeing that MSC certification has held its own even in the kind of fluctuating economic conditions that we find ourselves in. In terms of where the products lie, we do find the canned and frozen seafood is where eco-labeling tends to happen the most. We are seeing quite sudden and significant growth in food service and pet food, though, so areas to be aware of. I'm afraid I don't have time, but I am being told that I need to keep an eye on it, so I'm just going to move forward a little bit faster. Just looking at some of the sectors that are well represented, and this first slide really shows the fishery, the commodity sectors that are well represented in MSC. And I just want to draw your attention to the first column, tons of MSC engaged catch, versus the final column, the volume of MSC labeled sales. And you'll see that there's a significant drop-off. So while we've got 75% of whitefish, wild-caught whitefish is already in the MSC program, only, what's that, not even 10% of that is being sold with the eco-label. So there's a tremendous opportunity for MSC to grow into new markets as well. Coming to a second slide, this I think probably has more immediate relevance or interest to the Indian market because of some of the species, prawn, shrimp, crab, lobster. These are important species coming out of India and are not very well represented yet in the MSC program. So there is tremendous opportunity for MSC growth and also for Indian exports because the demand is there. We just don't have the supply volumes at the moment to be able to meet that final demand. Finally, just to wrap up on consumer sentiment a little bit, every 2 years we run a survey just to try and understand where consumers in the markets that we're active in are currently seeing certification, seeing environmental sustainability, because we want to understand, first of all, if they're concerned about seafood sustainability at all, whether they recognize the MSC eco-label, and also where they put their trust in improving fisheries. So we run a survey through an organization called GlobeScan. It's conducted online. It's the biggest survey of its kind worldwide. In 2024, we ran this in 23 countries, and we had, what was that, around 27,000 respondents. So it's a very big sample from those countries. And some interesting findings. So what we are seeing is that there's good recognition of the MSC label in those markets, in those 23 markets, and it's seen a continuous increase. So around half of people will recognize unprompted what the MSC label represents. So we will show them the label without any text around it and ask them whether they recognize it and if they know what it represents. 58%, which seems very high, say that their purchasing decision may be swayed by seeing that label on a product. 40% understand the MSC Eco label, and 3 in 4 consumers trust the Eco label. That's an important element when we come to this next slide, because when consumers are asked who they trust in the seafood space, you'll see that national government, who have the management authority, don't come at the top of consumer trust. And that's something that perhaps, I don't know how national governments can work on growing that trust. Unfortunately, as I say, this is global market, and for individual countries to be able to grow their trust in a global market is very tricky, which is why we come back to the idea of a global third-party standard that has no vested interest. Independent certifications had around 27% of trust. Scientists and NGOs are where consumers really put their faith. They believe what they're being told in science and the NGO space. Increasing concern for the oceans. We haven't seen this dip off. It's still not the first priority for most buyers. They will still buy based on brand or health or taste or quality. But there's an increasing concern, and we are starting to see dietary shifts, people moving away from what is perceived to be more impactful protein sources such as red meat towards vegetarian-based or seafood-based diets. So we are seeing that shift. And I'm going to finish on this quote before I hand over to the next speaker. This is from a quote by Peter Thompson, the United Nations Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean. I won't read that, but I'm going to thank you and pass back for the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for this good presentation on the Marine Stewardship Council. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Ranjit Sushilan, who is the MSC representative in India, to talk about the status of MSC certification in Indian fish stocks. Please be brief.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Seafood Exporters Association for hosting a technical session on Marine Stewardship Council programs. And we are also obliged to Government of India for being with us throughout the time, helping all the, for moving ahead. Thanks to CMFRI for helping in most of the, you can see the work, most of the work is helped by the central institutes. They have given us a lot of supports. So Mike, you have covered some of my area also. So for me, it will be a less to give you an update status what India does. So basically, I'm not going into more. I'll just give you a snapshot on what is the purpose of certification. So as you all know, it is to promote sustainable fishing practices. Excuse me. So basically, it is to promote the sustainable fishing practices, mitigate environmental impact, protect aquatic ecosystems, and improve safety and quality of fish products. So this is just to give you a small snapshot. And all these certifications are voluntary. It is not compulsory that all people should have a certification. So basically, a voluntary method of environmental performance certification and labeling that's practiced around the world. So that's the purpose of this. And this is just to give you what MSC is. And basically, you can see MSC is a non-profit organization, a certification and eco-labeling program, set credible standards, recognize sustainable fishing practices and work fisheries around the world. So this is the main purpose of MSc, just to give you an outline about MSc. And independence and credibility already Mike has covered. And what does this certification provides? As you all know, pathway for improvements, better visibility, enhanced reputation, a lot of things. And this slide, I can hand it over to you. I'm not taking much of your time. So basically, it's based on 3 principles. MSc works on 3 principles. That is, principle 1 is looking into the sustainable fish stocks, and principle 2 looks into the minimizing the environmental impact, and principle 3 is the effective management. And what is the traceability part? That is the supply chain assurance in fisheries. Basically, importance of traceability, it ensures supply chain traceability. And components of traceability also, you can see unique product identification, recording and sharing information, verification and reporting system. So these are all the requirements when the final product reaches the customers. So how does this work together? How does the standard certification and supply chain assurance work together? You can see here standards provide guidelines for sustainable and responsible fishing. Certification is basically the verification of compliance to the standards and builds market confidence. And traceability ensures that the certified product are traceable throughout the supply chain. And finally, the outcome is we can protect the environment and the product reaches the final end user. And basically, the sustainability, we have 2 base things. One is the pre-certification space and the full assessment. So basically, we are into the pre-certification space. I will be explaining more on that on the other slides. So basically, in India, what did we do? I'm just giving a brief about India. India, we had a fishery scanning of more than 200 species, and this was done in Semaphore in 2018, where all the stakeholders were available. And from there, we prioritized around 30 species based on the seafood exporters requirement and MPDA requirement. 30 species were identified. Out of that 30 species, the pre-assessment was taken for 13 species. And you can see a fishery mapping. The fishery mapping was done by Semaphore, has done the fishery mapping. Pre-assessment was done by independent CAB. Action plan has been developed, and in fishery progress now there are 10 species which are moving for final assessment. In the fishery program. So basically this is just a timeline how it has happened in India. In India, 2007, the initiatives was taken by MPDA with the help of Semaphore to identify the different species. It was 2007. 2010, India and WWF India and Semaphore worked together for taking Ashtamudi clam into certification process. 2014, Ashtamudi clam was the first certified fishery in India. 2015, MSc meeting was held in India. That is the TAB meeting where the CEO of MSc was here. 2016, MSc opened its office in India. 2017, Semaphore, that is the brainstorming which we had with all the people in, with the stakeholders that led, Semaphore led that brainstorming. And there we prioritized the 30 species. The formation of SSNI was happened in that meeting only. And the requirement of a common platform to talk about sustainability, talk with the government, interlink with the government and the processors and the NGOs. 2019, you can see here 5 species of trawl-caught shrimp and cephalopod came into the pre-certification process. 2020, 3 species of trawl-caught deep-sea shrimps came into the system. CIFT and Seafood Exporters Association had a major MOU with that. 2022, MSc released an ITM project. MSc funded for the deep sea shrimps to WWF India, around 1 crore Indian rupees. And DOF, Department of Fisheries at that time, they agreed for the full support for MSc certification. Semaphore had a major MOU with Seafood Exporters Association 2023, and that MOU created a lot of progressive work in India for moving ahead with the MSc certification process. In addition to that time only, we also had the Surmi processing moving forward. It was Gadre Exports that initiated the work of threadfin bream fishery to get into the certification, and later the Surmi association was formed, and the Surmi association was funded for the assessment by certifications and rating. So they were the funding agency for moving ahead. That was in 2023. In 2024, the Surmi association formed, and the assessment was carried out. 2025, the new fishery, which was supported by MSc funded, that is the Chilka fishery, Chilka mud crab fishery, and Central Inland Fishery Research Institute and Chilka Development Authority is leading that part. And we are expecting certified fishery to come by 2026 if all things happen good. And these are the fishery which is moving forward. You can see here, it is not a single client. A single client cannot handle all the certification process because it's a multi-stakeholder requirement is there. You can see here, the blue swimming crab is, it's the Crab Meat Processors Association is doing that. And rest all you can see here is done by the Seafood Exporters Association. The association is funding for most of the work. Around 80% of the work is funded by Seafood Exporters Association. And some of them are independently supported by the buyers themselves. The buyers are supporting from outside. And these are some of the fishery in pipeline. Already discussions are going on. You can see 6 species of grouper from Tamil Nadu. It is supported by the North Atlantic Seafood. That's from the buyers are requiring this to be certified. Pollen line, now WWF India and Government of India is going ahead with that part from Lakshadweep Islands. Then spiny lobster, still it is not moving forward because no fund. So there are so many other species which are being taken up. And the last one is the Chilka has pre-assessment has already been started. So I'm not going into all these things. So basically, it's a premium requirement, premium product requirement, and indirectly also serves the sustainable part. Basically, MSc certification is cannot be done by a single person. It is a multi-stakeholder involvement where all the government institutes, which are the players. So basically, we are helped and supported by CMFRI, CIFRI, MPDA, Seafood Exporters, WWF, CMPA, State Fisheries Departments. They are the main people who are implementing. So Niti Aayog has given the full support for going ahead. CIFT, buyers, you can see Cochin University is also there. Sustainable Seafood Network is the base for all our work. So there are lot of stakeholder involvement required. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjit, for this presentation. With this, we come to the end of this presentation. Now we have panelists to whom I will ask leading questions. And I request, Dr. Grinson to please come and sit. I will ask leading questions, they can answer. And the audience can can ask questions after the panelists make their comments. So first I will ask Mr. Abraham Taragan, in view of high tariffs on Indian seafood exports to the USA, can sustainability certification help in market advancement in the US?
You know, having a certified product and tariff are completely two different issues. Having a certified fishery certified is not going to affect the tariff per se. But what is the advantage of a company, getting certification, a company being certified, is that some of the major buyers, if there's a choice between a certified product being offered and another from what they have the preference, he will always buy a certified product. But tariff basically is today a trade and a issue between two countries. I mean, it's a bilateral negotiation that goes on the tariff. But definitely, if on the basis of if there's a choice of a buyer to buy a product which is certified, he will definitely buy the certified product.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask a supplementary to that?
Yeah.
Okay. The supplementary is there are now several Indian fisheries in FIPs, fishery improvement projects. Is the fisheries in the FIPs having a market advantage? Do companies look at what are the fisheries in FIPs and make their purchase decisions?
At the moment, not really, but there are certain major buyers who give preference to those who are in FIP. Definitely that is there. I mean, if you are in FIP, they would always, but these are very select buyers who are concerned with sustainability, and environment, fishery protection. But some of the largest buyers, definitely they would always prefer and buy from a company that is in the FIB program.
Thank you, sir. I will now address the next question to Dr. Grinson, Director of CMFRI. The question is, how prepared is the country to meet technical challenges to support fisheries certification?
Okay, I cannot answer that completely because I represent a research organization, Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute. From the CMFRI side, I will proudly say that except Michael and Dr. Tharagan, all are CMFRI products, like including Dr. Sunil. So CMFRI has been developing the capacity with respect to sustainability in different aspects. We have been working on the sustainability of stocks since the inception of the institute. So I know like one part is with respect to the sustainability, and CMFRI is always for sustainability. And we are looking into the stock status of the major products. As Ranjit was indicating, several stakeholder workshops have been committed and we have prioritized the species. But with respect to the country per se, we have a very complex multi-species fishing mechanisms existing in the country. A simple fisherman going for fishing, he carry a dozen of gear with him. So, but some of these fisheries definitely can come within the purview of MSC. We can try for getting the certification for such fishery mechanisms. That's why the initial initiation was for a small fishery short neck clam where we got MSC certification. But stock part is only one thing. Second thing is like for any certification agency, they are interested in the environmental auditing part. So I was discussing with Michael also. Regionally, the environmental auditing, what they are doing for the temperate countries will not be fully applicable to the tropical countries also. But definitely they will have their own stringent standards. That's why the certification is having some value. But what I feel is like being a country which is supporting the seafood availability in different parts of the globe, I will request Michael that such standards can be flexible with respect to the tropical conditions, which can support some of the Indian fishery to get certified in the globe abroad. We can definitely scientifically indicate that the environmental system what is existing in the country is not going to hamper in any way the quality of the product. Such systems we can work out. Third thing is with respect to the management. With respect to the management, we should have a management plan in place. CMFRI has developed guidelines for fishery management of most of the states and the union territories, and in a couple of months, just like how we are generating the marine fisheries census information for all the maritime states and union territories, we will be coming up with the compiled guidelines. Nilesh is sitting here. Nilesh is also part of CMFRI and FDC is also part of CMFRI. I have been in discussion with them. I have asked their support in getting all these guidelines approved by the respective states and union territories so that it will become a valid document which can help us in the certification process also. So we are all in these initiatives. But with respect to MSc particular, the certification process may be totally different. But as long as Indian seafood industry is going to get a benefit out of it, CMFRI definitely will be supporting such initiatives. At the same time, we are looking into national certification standards also, which Michael was telling, like, let us do it, compete with the existing standards, so that we will also realize like how best we can do it, or how difficult it is going to be in a certification process also. But we'll accept that challenge, because I have seen like countries like Iceland, they have tried that also. So so we'll definitely take it in that. This is the status what I have to report from CMFRI.
Thank you, Dr. Grinson. Thing is, I think some of the important points that you raised is about MSc being a very high bar in terms of standard. But I also think that MSc has certain, what is called as risk-based, RBF, risk-based framework, which is the way in which the Ashtamudi clam got certified. So there are means by which it can get certified. So thank you again, Dr. Grinson, for this comment. Next, I will go on to Dr. Nilesh Pawar. Nilesh is an officer, senior officer of the Department of Fisheries, Government of India. And the question that I'm asking is, are the government's fisheries policies and regulations tuned to meet the standards of MSc certification?
As far as specific to MSc certification, we don't have right now the comprehensive policy. But we do have the Marine Fisheries Policy 2017, and it addresses some of the aspects. And in addition to that, the government...
Nilesh, the Marine Fisheries Policy of 2017 specifically recommends eco-labeling and certification
Right,
of
sir.
Indian fisheries.
Yeah. So, but as on date, we don't have the comprehensive, framework for that. But Government of India is closely working with all the coastal states and UTs to amend their respective Marine Fisheries Regulation Acts. In addition to that, we are also working to bring out the traceability framework, end-to-end traceability in the fisheries sector, and probably in a couple of months we will be able to roll out that guidelines that will take care of the MSc certification also. And as Ranjit sir was telling, that Government of India is already working with the tripartite agreement with the Lakshadweep WWF of India for the poline lines to making the tuna certified through the MSc certification. So I think this everything will take care.
What about regulations? Is there going to be some new regulations for
Yeah, definitely, sir. Because once the traceability guidelines will come, then we will ask all the coastal states and union territories to amend their respective MFRAs also. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nilesh. So I'll ask the next question to Vinod. Vinod is the Director of Programs in the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, and his organization was instrumental in initiating fishery certification in India, especially the MSc certified Ashtamudi clam. Vinod, can Indian small-scale fisheries derive benefits from MSc certification in view of what work you have done with the Ashtamudi clam?
Okay, yeah, so thanks for the great question. It's a $1 million question. So right from when the MSc started, this was a major allegation. When the MSc started, the major allegation was MSc was supporting only commercial-based fisheries and not small-scale fisheries. Then WWF started our community-based fisheries program long back, and we have a network in 120 countries around the globe. And in most of the European countries, the fishery improvement program as part of the community-based program is in progress. And to your questions around small-scale fisheries, yes, definitely the small-scale fishers would be benefited. So here there are like two aspects. One is the sustainability of the stock, and second is the market benefit. So definitely what we have done, we have used MSc principles as a tool to encourage sustainability of the stock, and rest is like market incentive. So market incentive, like if you look at the Southeast Asian countries, the fisheries that has been certified are very few, as Mike was also showing in his presentation. So we have a Bentry clam fishery in Vietnam which has been certified, the Maldives tuna fisheries. These are the only two fisheries. And in India, it is the Ashramudi clam fishery. And for that, I would use this forum to thank CMFRA for the great help that they provided in preparing the Ashramudi clam management plan, which was the first plan in India for a living resource. And that actually initiated the ecosystem-based fisheries management, which is now part of the Marine Fisheries Regulation Act. So that is a major step. And when the revision of the Kerala Marine Fisheries Regulation Act in Kerala happened in 2017, a lot of the FIP, the gaps which were addressed in the FIP became amendments in the Kerala Marine Fisheries Regulation Act in 2017. So as I said, it is basically a tool for sustainable management of the fishery. And right now, as Ranjit was also presenting in the pipeline, we have the Lakshadweep Poland line skipjack tuna fisheries, which has completed the fishery improvement plan. So the fishery improvement plan is a process just before getting certified, so that we are able to address the gaps rather than going for full certification. In an FIP program, we will be able to address the gaps, and normally it takes like 4 to 5 years. But in Lakshadweep, since the gaps were only like 2 or 3, one was on bait fishery management and second was on the stocks, that has been addressed. And now it is ready to move towards full certification. And other fisheries which are in the pipeline is the blue swimmer crab fishery in Tamil Nadu on the east coast, and then the mud crab fishery in Chilka. So from this, what we also understand is it is best to choose a regional fishery rather than looking at a fishery which is all over the coast, because we have been unable to actually demonstrate to the producers the benefit that is derived from MSC certification, basically the market benefit. So in Ashramudi, what happened, the fishery was certified in 2014, but then there were norms on the growing waters. As per the EU guidelines, since it is a live commodity, you have to satisfy certain parameters, and which is now being addressed. And hopefully we are also going to do an initiative on recertification of the Ashramudi clam fishery. As Taragan sir was also saying, there is a lot of demand for certified fishery all along the globe, and Japan is anyway demanding MSC certified fisheries. And since they are the largest clam, importers in the world, this would definitely help, and this is like a major step. And apart from this, one of the major challenge in MSC certification is also the cost. So the cost is because in India we don't have qualified auditors. We have only one qualified auditor, and I also have regular mail saying that we need more Indian auditors to be qualified so that the cost can be brought down. If you bring an auditor from outside India, it definitely incurs a lot of cost, and that is a major cost. So once the cost is reduced, definitely this can become affordable. And the fishers, if it is a cooperative or an association, it can definitely have money. But if it is a group of fishers, it will never happen. And the Seafood Export Association India has taken a very large initiative, and they have actually taken a very large initiative to get these fisheries certified. And we, as a conservation organization, are also supporting a few fisheries to get it certified. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. Because you mentioned costs, I'll just ask this supplementary to Nilesh. Is the government of India looking at supporting fisheries in India moving towards certification in terms of financial costs?
Yes, sir. We are working now with the PMMSY 2.0. So in that, there is a separate environmental chapter. So we are making, and we will be supporting this kind of initiatives like certifications, be it MSc, BAP, or ASC, all certifications programs will be
Yeah, I think that's a very heartening news. And the final question is to Mike. So how do you think Indian seafood exports can benefit from seafood labeling, eco-labeling like MSC?
Thank you. I think that's been touched on to a certain extent by some of the other speakers, and it depends very much on the fishery concerned. You asked the question just now whether small-scale fisheries could benefit. I think what we need to recognize is certification is a tool. it's a market tool, and for the fisheries that are selling into markets where there is demand and there's potential price premium or access to markets, those fisheries will know where they are. It tends to be the export markets, but that could potentially change if local markets start demanding certification already. For the other fisheries, I want to come back to the idea of certification, the standard being a framework rather than just certification, because certification is a specific end goal where fisheries want to be able to demonstrate to their markets that they have been independently assessed. When it comes to management of fisheries, all fisheries can benefit from using the framework, because essentially it's a fairly simple, it's very complex, don't get me wrong, but it's a fairly simple concept in that the standard is trying to look at the outcome of fisheries management, whether the target stock is in a healthy state, whether the fishing activities are looking after the environment or not impacting the environment in such a way that it will undermine the continued productivity of that target stock, and then the management elements. So how we close that loop and make sure that any changes in the stock can be addressed at a management level. So I think all fisheries can benefit from the MSC as a framework, but we do also need to recognize that it will tend to be either the larger commercial fisheries selling into external markets at the moment or high value products. And then I also just wanted to explain, because I think part of understanding this is to understand where the costs lie with certification. It's an independent assessment process, and Vinod already mentioned the assessor capacity, so there are no costs really attached to MSC per se, unless you're putting the label onto a product. It's the expertise that you're paying for assessors to come in and do an independent audit, and that's not really scalable to the size of a fishery. So the more complex a fishery is, with a multi-species fishery for instance, a lot more expertise needs to go into understanding whether the stock is healthy. You know, it's all about information and how easily that can be assessed. So I think coming back to the question is not a simple answer, very much dependent on which fishery and where their market is.
Thank you, Mike. Now the floor is open. If any of you have a question. Before that, one of the panelists wants to ask a question. It's on.
This is to Michael and Ranjit, right? As you know, Seafood Exporters Association is heavily invested in your certification. And we are trying to get more and more companies to join our forum. Right? But I'm asked a very basic question. Right? That is why the requirement for MSC. Basically, if you look at our exports, now if you look at the 5 species, the multi-species we are doing, koala and karikari that we are doing, the cephalopods and deep sea. If you look at the export data over the last 10, 15 years or 20 years, every year it's been increasing. Right? 2 is our method of fishing has not changed. It's still very artisan. As Jagdish mentioned in the last thing, actually our fishing catch has been going up, it's not come down. Right? So the reason why we have actually gone into this requirement of certification, because we find that if we don't get our fisheries certified, we will get excluded from some of our major buyers against our Asian competition. Okay? So they are asking, when you look at it, when the buyers look at it, they want to know whether the fishery is sustainable, and it is, the fishing is also environmentally, in line with what the world standard is. If you look at our area, our government has brought in enough laws with regard to overfishing, juvenile fishing, net size. All these laws are now in place, and they are also taking action. I mean, especially some state government, because the fisheries is a state subject. It belongs to the center as an overall thing as far as beyond the 15 nautical mile. So why are we taking this long process to certify when actually all factors, parameters that are really required, we fulfill them, right? And it's now taken 3-4 years. Of course, data, process, all that is there. But if you look at our export figures and what we have been doing and our catch, whatever CMFR done, there's been no, in any of these fisheries, actually the catches have gone up because the export figures show that the catches have gone up, especially for cephalopods. So when I'm asked this question, the only answer I can say is that the buyers are saying you get certified, otherwise you're not going to buy your product.
I'm Kenny Thomas. I'm from Gujarat. I'm an exporter and we are one of the largest squid producers in India. As you know, squid is an R strategist. It is an opportunistic species. There is no industrial squid fishing in India like in the Falkland Islands. And all the predatory fish that used to eat the squid have all disappeared. That resource, the K strategist fish, the tuna, the sharks and all, the ribbon fish and several other fish have been overfished. So the squid has an opportunity to grow and thrive in this environment. And also, I have more or less, I'm in the business for almost 40 years and we are watching the squid resource very closely. And as Mr. Tarakan has said, the squid resource is always on a rise. So it has never depleted. You have a season, an odd season where there is less squid as compared to the last season, but the next season, the resource bounces back. So my question is then, what are the challenges you face in certifying this resource, MSC certifying this resource? Thank you.
Thank you, Tarakan sir, for the beautiful question, and sir also for the question. So basically there are challenges. The challenges are what you are told. First, answering to Tarakan sir's question, we have data, lot of reports are coming out, but there are certain things at the level which we need to implement. We need to have certain documentation, like Simafora Director has told about fishery management plan. We need a fishery management plan. Who makes the fishery management plan? The fishery management plan is made by the Central Institute. Who needs to execute the fishery management plan? It has to be executed by the State Fisheries Department. If you want to execute in the fishery management in the State Fisheries Department, we need to have fishery laws to be amended. Fishery laws amend takes time. So first thing is we need to have, Tarakan sir, first we need to have fishery management plan. We need to implement that. In order to implement that, then coming again, we need harvest control rules. Does India have harvest control rules made? So there are so many questions to be answered. That's why it takes a lot of time. I'll give you.
Yeah, thank you, Ranjit. The main problem is, as he said, is documentation, paperwork. You know, as exporters, how much of paperwork you do for quality. The same thing for sustainability. Okay, so you need to show documents, rules, regulations, enforcement. So these are, in the previous session, one of the gentlemen was asking about labor. Again, where is the paperwork? That's the issue. So, any other questions? Yeah, I think Deepak, yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Deepak Chaudhary. I'm the secretary for the Surmi Sustainability Forum. And we have already uploaded the FIP. But the issue now that we are going to face is between and we have started FIP for 3 states, Kerala, Karnataka and Goa. Now the problem we are facing, the FIP has to be implemented mostly at the fisherman level. But each state has a different regulation. So we need to have a common law for all the states. Because the variation in the laws is causing conflict between the fishermen. And that's going to be a big hurdle to implement the FIP.
Nilesh, you would like to answer this?
Yeah, that is we have noted your point. and we will write to all the states, because now right now we are also planning to make a one common regulatory framework, and that common regulatory framework will take care of these small aspects of the certification program. So based on that common framework, we will circulate to all the coastal states too. So in that, by that way, we can have that
In
issue can be addressed.
MSc parlance, it is known as harmonization of rules. So I think the department is at it. Yeah.
The major cost in MSc certification is the assessment cost. So we need cooperation from CMFR also.
This point was raised by Tharagan sir when we met last time. So when it comes to, I told CMFRI in 2022 we came up with a marine fish stock status. So in which we have addressed some of the major species and its stock. Now in 2026 we are coming up with the next stock status report. So this will be a peer-reviewed publication as well as a summary report which can be utilized by any bodies. But for that we have identified 196 species and around 320 stocks. So this information has been published in the Marine Fisheries Information Services also. But the problem is like Seafood Export Association or any certification agency, they may be requiring, because of their market requirement, some early assessments, some early targets. So this is CMFRI's targets. Beyond that, if I have to go, I also don't have the resources to support that activity. So the best thing is like there should be dedicated funds, as Dr. Sunil Mohammed was indicating, like Department of Fisheries, if in the next plan period they are keeping some funds for this activity, that can be directly given and we can go ahead with the type of prioritization required, deadlines required. We can also put a dedicated team with additional manpower hired using these resources and do the assessment part as required. This is how we can go ahead.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Dr. Grinson. I think he also mentioned in his talk earlier that the research institute would also need funds for this work. I think the Seafood Association has been supporting the institute. Yeah. So I know we won't go into more details, but so there's a last question from the gentleman there. Yeah.
My name is Piyush Fofandi, ex-ACI President, Gujarat region. We need MSc certification for the foreign buyers. Is there any Indian certification they required in foreign countries? First thing. And the second thing is, our Gujarat are 1.45 billion people. They are not capable to do this thing. Why we need the certification from the other? And if they want Indian, like Fisheries Department, CMFRI, or London or UK, whether it is America, they want Indian certification. Just I want to ask Mr. Michael.
I think the thing is, you can't certify yourself. You can't say, I am great, I am good, okay, and expect others to accept that. So that's a global...
UK or US want our any
No, it's based, the certifications are based on FAO's guidelines, on standards. The MSc is an organization which follows the FAO guidelines. There are several other certification agencies which follow the FAO guidelines. So you have to have a particular standard, and that is how this is done. Saragan also.
See, the issue is this. It's not that the US government or the UK government, FDA, is asking for certification, right? The problem is that various buyers have selected certain certifications. So they're saying, if you want me to buy your product, you please get this certified. So national, like I think Japan tried their own certification, but that was not accepted by some of the major buyers. In fact, buyers in Japan itself did not accept the national certification efforts of the Japanese government. So they wanted MSc or ASC somewhere. So that is the problem. Problem is that the buyers they will accept certain recognized international certification and not a national thing. Neither the US, the FDA or the EU authority is not asking for that you have to have a certified product to ship. They're asking you meet our basic standards. The certification requirement is being asked by the buyer because he wants a, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Oh, last question by Jagdish.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. This question is more directed towards CIFT and Government of India. Power
You mean CMFRI?
So CMFRI, I'm sorry. I get, because Veeraval, I get confused between the two.
Okay.
See, today at this forum, we are talking about certification, MSc, which is widely accepted by buyers, and this is why we are discussing about this whole issue. Then the issues come up, of data, of various methods of implementing this certification. To my mind, is the government today it is MSc, tomorrow it may be something else, and day after tomorrow it may be something else. The world evolves, and so will the requirements. So, on a long-term basis, does the government have a plan so that we meet such certification standards in terms of finance, in terms of data, in terms of intellect? So, to my mind, I think instead of firefighting every second certification, we should have a broader policy within the government and government organizations and our academia and research organizations, which suffice the future needs also. So is there a plan, or is this coming up any soon?
I was earlier mentioned that we are bringing the traceability framework. So in the traceability end-to-end traceability framework, if you see, there is standards, there is certification, there is a labeling, all requirement, broader requirement at national level will be taken care. So
Also, ultimately, all these things, certification, all these are to help us reach sustainability. We want our resources to be sustainable, okay? And we are also to show the world that our resources are sustainable. That's the only thing, okay?
Sir,
So
I agree with you,
yeah.
but the only point is that tomorrow, with our evolving needs, I think if we are one up.
Sir, I think I talked when Sunil sir asked the question. Basically, any certification require a set of data sets or whatever is needed. Basically, we see that assessment is needed. What is assessment of the stocks? Second is the environmental audit, what is required. And the third one is the management plan. That is what Michael was explaining. This will be there for any certification. So what CMFRI is planning is like, we are also not keen to MSc or a particular thing. The stock should be sustainable, the environmental audit should be perfect, and we should have the management plan. So we are aiming on those ideas, and we are working on sustainability, we are working on environmental audit, and we are working on management plans. Once we give the management plans, it is up to the Department of Fisheries to take this, and the states should accept and publish it as a gazette notification, so that management plans will be in all the states. We are taking such initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grinson. And with this, we come to the end of this session. I thank all the panelists for the wonderful presentations and discussions that we had. I thank the audience also for their interactions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all the distinguished panelists for sharing such valuable insight. Now I would request Mr. Alex Nen to please join us on the stage for vote of thanks and sharing the memento with all of our panelists. And I would request you all to please stay here. We're going to have a group picture as well.
Good afternoon, dear friends. I'm standing here in absence of Dr. Raghavan, CEO of the Seafood Exporters Association of India, who had to urgently leave on an urgent meeting. So it's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the Seafood Exporters Association of India to our distinguished convener, speakers, and the panelists who have enlightened us today on the topic of sustainability of fisheries in India with special reference to MSc. Your insightful presentations, expertise, and perspectives here truly enrich our understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this vital sector. Your contributions have added immense value to this discussion. A special thanks to all the participants, delegates, for your active engagement, and to everyone behind the scenes who made this session possible. As you know, sustainability in fisheries is not just an industry concern, but a collective responsibility. And today's discussion have certainly inspired us to move forward with a renewed purpose. Thank you all once again, and we look forward to continuing this important journey together. I now request Jagdish Fafandi, Chairman of the IISS Committee and also the former President of the Seafood Exporters Association, to come forward to present the mementos to our distinguished speakers. May I request Dr. Grinson George, Director of CMFRI. Okay, may I request Dr. Nilesh Pawar from Department of Fisheries, Government of India, to come forward and receive the memento. Thank you, Dr. Nilesh, for accepting. May I request Mr. Michael Marriott, MSc Program Director of MSc Africa, Middle East and South Asia, to come forward. May I request Mr. Vinod, Director, Marine Conservation Program of WWF, to come forward and receive the memento from Mr. Jagdish Fafandi. And I request Dr. Sunil Mohammed. And I request Dr. Sunil Mohammed, Chair of the Sustainable Seafood Network of India, to come forward and receive the memento, please. Thank you for accepting. And I request Dr. Ranjit Sushilan, Head of MSc India, to come forward and receive the memento from Mr. Jagdish. And I request Mr. A.J. Tharagan, our former President of the Seafood Exporters Association of India and National Managing Committee member, to come and receive the memento from Mr. Jagdish Fafandi.
I request everybody to please have a huge round of applause for all of our speakers.